Alrighty, welcome back everyone. Scarland here bringing you a new Neverwinter video. Today is going to be the Infernal Citadel. This is going to be the Mod 18 dungeon. This video is going to be about an hour long, but I'm going to commentary the whole thing. So hopefully, you have something to listen to or watch. So this is my very first run through ever of this dungeon. So I'm going for the completion here, obviously. I'm going to pick up some of the achievements, and hopefully we're just going to have a good time. So there are some bugs, there are some holdups. We wiped a couple times at the last boss, but for the most part, I actually really enjoyed the dungeon overall, and that's something to be said, because, as of recently, Neverwinter's kind of been, but the mechanics, the dungeon feel itself, I feel like the Warlock itself is actually in a decent place. It could be a lot better. I still think that the overall mechanics of the Warlock need to be worked on. The single target needs to be looked at. It takes way too long to ramp up. The mechanics are kind of a joke. So, of course, I'm talking about Soul Investor here. The 5 stacks of the Soul Investor or single target. It just takes way too long to ramp up that time to really hit those high DPS numbers. And now the Warlock is not really a direct damaging DPS anymore. Now we're definitely going into the role of DOT damage. So this is one of the first bugs that we're encountering right here, is when you are at the very first entrance of the dungeon, you want to make sure your whole entire team talks to the same boss. Otherwise, you're going to have to fight the boss yourself if you talk to a different boss. So, for instance, we can't go through these chains because it's not picking up that we have all talked to the same boss. You actually have to stand away from the chains. You have to position yourself just right so someone can interact with it. It's kind of a pain. So we're going to go through the first little mini boss phase here, and then we're going to come right up to the first boss itself. But getting back onto the topic of the Warlock itself, like I said, we're not doing direct damage. Now we're basically doing DOT damage non-stop, extreme amounts of DOT damage. So essentially, the longer the fight lasts, the longer the Warlock has a chance to get his high tier numbers out there. It's all about damage on top of damage on top of damage. So Soul Investor, unfortunately, isn't really helping us that much. It is a 5% increase per stack or whatever it is these days. I don't even know how much Soul Investor is. I think it's 20% overall when you have the 5 stacks. But accumulating the 5 stacks, and I've said this from, the start of when they did all the Warlock changes, is that this isn't going to work, not in this type of game. You don't have, the time. You're losing out on too much DPS in the initial battle. And the problem with the stacks is they wear off. So if you need to move around and relocate, say you're doing Tower of the Mad Mage, you're constantly moving, it's almost impossible to maintain all of those stacks of Soul Investor. They stack 5 times. You're never going to have 5 stacks. This stage of the game, this is, considered end game if you're doing Tower of the Mad Mage. If you're doing Infernal Citadel, you're constantly moving around. And once we get to the boss battles, I'll show you that, especially the last boss of this dungeon. So another thing I want to mention with this dungeon is you're going to want to take a pre-made group. You don't have to. Nova was arguing with me on Twitter that he's doing it with randoms and he's been doing fine. Well, those runs are also taking him 2 hours or longer per run. And the rewards just simply aren't worth it, which we'll discuss the rewards once we get closer to the end of the dungeon, obviously. However, it is doable with randoms. If you do a random pickup group, a pug group, there's chances that you will finish this dungeon, but you're going to be in there a very long time. The mechanics of the dungeon require you to be in contact with your teammates. So if you're on Xbox or your PS4 or on PC, whether you're using Discord for communication, whether you're using Xbox Live party chats, whether you're using party chats on PS4, it's definitely recommended that all 5 of you are in some kind of form of communication and some kind of voice chat. There are a lot of queues that eventually you won't have to do this, right? As more and more people learn the mechanics of the dungeon, you can pretty much especially for the first and second bosses. The first and second bosses aren't horrible. You can get through those fairly easy. But when it comes down to the last boss, you have to have communications, and I'll explain the battles as we go through them. So right now we're going through the chains. We are trying to get the portals. They're the easiest, at least from what I've been told. Like I said, this was my very first run through of this dungeon. And at the same time, this is again one of those dungeons that when I accumulate the items I need from this dungeon, I'm unfortunately never going to do this dungeon again. This is another, I don't know, Lair of the Mad Mage, another Castle Ravenloft is a good example. I have never done Castle Ravenloft since the mod was over, right? I've never gone back and done Castle Ravenloft. There's no incentive to do that. There's no reason to go back and actually do that dungeon. There's the rewards are bad. And I know Cryptic is currently working on, upgrading the reward system and whatnot. So here we are. This is what we consider the mini boss. So we all talk to the same boss in the very beginning, and we just melt this guy down. I mean, he's a joke. He's meant to be soloed, basically, because if all your teammates talk to a different mini boss, they all have to individually do that. So here we are, coming up to the first boss. He doesn't really have that many hard mechanics. Basically, your tank is going to get aggro on him. The tank's going to pull him into a specific corner, and DPS is just going to go to town on him, essentially. We actually mow through this first boss pretty quickly, if I remember correctly. So the tank's going to gain aggro. Everyone's going to position behind him. The healer is going to heal. I believe our healer is the paladin, actually. We have a fighter, tank, and then DPS is going to be warlock, barbarian, and ranger. And you're going to be surprised at the pain giver boards at the end as well. These are end game players. They all have top of the line equipment. Everybody is geared out fully, so you guys are actually going to see the warlock make a reappearance as being actual good DPS for long fights. So you can see we almost have him down 75%. He'll be 50% here momentarily. He doesn't have any specific mechanics that you need to really look out for. Mainly his mechanics are focused on the person that has aggro. So your tank, for instance, he does this charge a tank. So if your tank is good enough, you should be fine. It's basically just a tank and spank engagement. So you can see me. I'm actually standing a little further back from my teammates than I should be. I now inch up and get a little closer to get all the buffs and everything else. But you can see the damage the Warlock's putting out right now. So it's not big burst DPS. Those are all DOT ticks, guys. And they're decent. Those DOT ticks are decent. Creeping Death is the cause of this. Creeping Death is actually one of our hardest hitting abilities now. You're going to notice that I'm not really using Killing Flames because it's kind of bugged with Creeping Death. If you use Killing Flames, it refreshes all your Creeping Death stacks. So as a Warlock, you can stack Creeping Death 10 times, but if you use a Killing Flames in the middle of the 10-time rotation, it wipes out all the stacks. Hopefully they get that sorted out and fixed, but you can clearly see this took very to little no time here. We tank and spank this first boss remotely quickly. So let's talk about the loot real quick. Since you're going to see me, I'm going to want the Hellfire Chain. So each boss can drop some of the gear types. I'm going to put a separate video out on how to exactly get the Lionheart gear, but if you're watching this video, this is going to be a long video, so if you're bearing with me. The Hellfire Chain, for instance, is one of the reagents for the gloves in particular, and that's the piece of gear that I'm looking for from this dungeon is the lion gloves. And it will just go right into your riches tab here once, everybody passes on it. So there are 4 types of reagents, there's 4 types of gear, and these are time gated as well. So you can get 1 reagent from every boss once a week. So I actually am lucky enough, I pulled 2 of the Hellforged chains out of this one run. I got it from the first boss and I believe the last boss. So I didn't get one from the second boss. So if I was to continually run this dungeon, I would only be able to get that chains from the second boss. And then there's a 7-day waiting period before that all refreshes. So I think I did this on a Friday night. I would have to wait until the following Friday before I would be eligible to get that specific reagent from those bosses that I already got it from. So right now, we're sitting here. Some of my teammates have aggro through the door. This is another glitch in the dungeon. We had people trying to change their loadouts, trying to move artifacts around and try to, situate themselves for the next part of the dungeon. But you can see that the mobs actually have aggro on my teammates. Well, I noticed that I didn't have aggro, so I kind of inched up to the door. I was able to interact with the door, and then we were able to progress this dungeon. The trash mobs are a little stronger than what I would have thought they would have been. This dungeon itself isn't hard, but if you're not geared for this dungeon, you're going to struggle with this dungeon. Some of the trash mobs will actually one-shot you. The mages, for instance, if you stand in their AoE with the fire indication under your feet, like the red circles from one of the mages, they will one-shot you. There's nothing you can do about it. So not only do you have to pay attention to the indicators, the red circles on the floor, but you have to be geared appropriately and have a good group that knows what they're doing, especially if you're playing the healing role. If you're playing the healing role, make sure you're healing your teammates and everyone is, adequately in range. Make sure you're telling your teammates don't run away from the healer. You should already know that. But I was actually surprised how strong even the trash mobs are in this dungeon. Like, I could probably solo the trash mobs, but I would have to use health stones. Because remember, lifesteal's gone. There's no more lifesteal. There's no more self-healing. We solely rely on Stone of Health now as our self-revives. Like, you can see me taking just loads of damage here. I'm getting hit upwards of 100k a hit, and I'm constantly moving around. So the trash mobs are definitely a little stronger than what I was anticipating, and they also have a good bit of HP. Some of them have, like the horse guys here that's on the screen right now, they actually have a really lot of HP. So, like, you can see, like, this pool of trash mobs took us only, almost 2 minutes to try to get. Now, this is one of the first achievements. I didn't know where it was, so this guy was lighting the torches, which was part of it, but here is one of the first achievements in the dungeon. I believe you get a title from this. One person per run can get this, so if you have it, make sure you give it to someone else. It is the Fearless title, so that title is remotely easy to get. It's just literally laying there on the floor. They, my group let me have it because I was filming. They knew I was filming, so we're going to move along here. And it's mainly just a whole lot of trash mobs from here on out until you get to the second boss. Once you get to the second boss, the third boss is not too far behind. So right now, we're mainly just killing trash mobs over and over and over again and just deep diving the dungeon at this point. So, I mean, I guess I'm just going to commentate and give you a little witty commentary, I guess. But I don't know what else to really tell you about the dungeon itself. Like I said, we talked about the Warlock. The dungeon itself is actually, it's definitely hard. Like, it's definitely, I don't want to say it's hard. Like, it's not to the point where you're going to be frustrated. Some of the boss mechanics are definitely going to make you frustrated. But my suggestion is that you get a group of friends that are all adequately geared. We're talking about endgame geared people here that know how to play their classes to tackle this dungeon. Now, this dungeon's been out now for how long? It's been out on PC for a very long time now. It's been a couple weeks since it's been out on console now. At this point, Mod 18 is already to that phase where pretty much we're wrapping up Mod 18, right? People are working on their boon points right now in the campaign. I actually take a death here. Again, those trash mobs do significant amount of damage. I was just careless, wasn't paying attention, and I got, stuck in between red indicators underneath me. Again, there's red indicators underneath me. I shadow slip away. You can see the AoE damage here. I think I switched back to my AoE loadout. So I am running a lightning here, so it's spreading all my damage. But the trash mobs are actually no joke. You definitely want to have communication with your group for sure, especially for the last boss. You guys will see the last boss when we get to it here. I mean, we're only 15 minutes into this video. This is an hour-long video, so we still have a little ways to go. There is significant trash mob clearing. The second boss, like I said, the mechanics aren't horrible. You are able to maybe not communicate with your group, but if you're doing this with someone that's never done the dungeon before, you're going to be in this dungeon for 2 hours, guys. Like, just like every dungeon that comes out, every new dungeon that has ever come out in the past 7 years, no one has no idea what's going on until they learn the mechanics of the dungeon, right? I was impressed with this dungeon overall. I think they did a good job for the most part. I didn't have any real complaints. There isn't any real game-breaking bugs or anything that are causing lack of progression or anything. And it's hard. It is hard to a degree, especially that last boss. The last boss, if you've done this dungeon already or have been farming this dungeon and have done it numerous times, you know exactly what I'm talking about already. You know the mechanics of the last boss and how frustrating it is. Especially if you don't have communication with your group and you have people running all over the circles, or squares rather, I guess they're squares. So if you have everyone running over the squares and there's fire everywhere, and it's just a really bad time. Like I said, lucky for me, I was in communication with these guys. They told me the rundown. These guys have already run this dungeon. This was my first run, but these guys have already done this dungeon. So they were giving me the rundown on what to do and where to be and how the mechanics interact. And even with that communication, it still took us, I think, 3 or 4 attempts on the final boss until we finally did take it down. Because, like I said, I can reiterate 1,000 times about, how frustrating and difficult the last boss can be. So, again, we're just moving through the trash mobs here. Just trash mobs after trash mobs after trash mobs. I think they could have spread out the bosses a little better. Like, you get to the first boss really fast, and then it's just a whole lot of trash mob clearing until you finally get to the second boss. Once you get the second boss down, there's only a little more trash mobs in between the second and third boss. I think they could have spread it out a little better. So the first boss would have been, right up front, then maybe some trash mobs, then the second boss, then some more trash mobs, then the last boss. But that's just my own personal opinion, and we just need something to talk about since I'm commentating an hour-long video. Hopefully you guys are going to stick with me, and especially if you've never seen this dungeon before. Or I don't even know how many other content creators out there have actually posted videos on Infernal Citadel. I know Rainer did an initial guide when it got released on PC, but as far as all the other content creators go, I have no idea. I don't know how much content is out there for the Mod 18 dungeon, or, how many guides are out there, or whatever the case may be. I really didn't do any research on it, but I always if you guys know, and you've been a part of this channel for a while, you guys always know that I typically like to post my initial runs of a brand new dungeon, just because sometimes funny stuff happens, right? Like, if I wasn't live streaming this, unfortunately, so you don't get live reactions, but usually when I do first run-throughs, I'm actually live streaming, so you can actually see my facial reactions and the stupid stuff that we do, like if I die randomly or whatever the case may be. Unfortunately, this was filmed previously, and then this commentary is being filmed even after that. So, like I said, trash mobs. Look at the DPS, though. I mean, this is with Lightning Enchantment. I haven't released the Mod 18 guide yet because I do want to get those gloves, and then the character will be 100% complete, and then I can release it. So that will be coming soon. Hopefully I can get these gloves remotely soon. Even if I don't get the gloves, I'm going to still put the video out there. I really want to get the video out soon because, people ask me all the time, when's the Mod 18 guide coming? When's the Mod 18 guide coming? What are we doing different? What's this? What's that? What's this? Most people fail to realize that when a new mod comes out, I can't just jump right in and give you guys all the information. You guys know that I'm a completist. I like to make sure everything is done. I like to accumulate all the items I need for that character before I, tell other people, yes, this is what you should be using. I thoroughly test everything, and everything that I put out there is usually concrete information. So I'm not going to make a guide day 2 of a new mod launch when I don't have any of the new items. I can't test anything. I haven't gone over different builds and different variations of the builds. Like, one of the most underrated things right now is, if you've been noticing watching the video, you're going to see the Grung's Instincts coming up right now on screen. You can see the Grung's Instincts. I guarantee no one is using this, and it's actually very, very OP. I've been using it, and it does significant damage. I can see my damage differentiate between when I'm using it and when I'm not using it. and I guarantee no DPS classes are actually using it. So that's something that, I'm bringing to the table. I've tested it. I know how much damage it does. I know the percentile of overall damage it does. I know the proc rate on it. Like, you can see it just procs non-stop. If you're not even familiar with what that companion does, it does X amount of magnitude poison damage, I believe, and it also spreads. And it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. And since the Warlock is now focused on DOT damage, it just synergizes so well. I've tried using a power companion in the slot instead of the Grung, and the Grung outperforms it. So if you're using a 4K power companion, the Grung is going to outperform the 4K power. That will be more discussed in the Warlock video itself, but since I have nothing to talk about in an hour-long commentary, I figured I would just mention it. But that was a significant DPS increase for the Warlock specifically. And mine's only Epic. I don't even know if it goes higher. If I upgrade it to Legendary, I might just make it Legendary for funsies. It might increase the magnitude damage and thus leading to more DPS. Maybe I'll do that. I don't know. We'll have to see. I have tons of companion tokens, so I'm not too worried about doing the resources. But you can see here, from judging from the time of us completing the first boss, and we're still clearing trash mobs at this point. So I don't know when the timestamp was of the first boss, but we're coming up to the second boss here soon, I believe. But it was like, what, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, maybe 10 minutes? I'm not even sure. I think this is the second boss right here, though. I believe there's a campfire right there in the left-hand corner, and I think this is the second boss right here, so we'll wait and see, but I'm pretty sure it is. So you go ahead, kill these pit fiends or whatever they are. Not too shabby so far. Very minor things. Yeah, so I'm switching over to single target here. Switching to single target, so this must be the second boss here. And we're just, my group right now is giving me the lowdown. Like I said, we're in party chat right now, and they're telling me the mechanics and blah, 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 and I'm just like, well, let's just go in and do it, like, I learn by doing, right? People can give me the directions all they want, right? But I'm like a hands-on learner, so I'm like, let's just go in, and if we die and we wipe, then, I need to learn the event, right? So they're giving me the rundown of the mechanics and how the bombs go off and everything, and I'll explain the mechanics to you guys as well as we go through it. But yeah, they're giving me the rundown right here, and I'm just like, yeah, let's just go in, give it a whirl. I don't think we actually wiped it all. I think the cleric, or not the cleric, the paladin, our main healer, actually dies right at the end of this, so our tank has no heals, and it was up to our DPS to finish like the last 5% of it, otherwise we would have wiped. But thankfully, the Warlock DOT damage trickled down that last 5%. We were able to complete the second boss without wiping. So I believe we're going to go in here soon. I take a look at the DPS. I'm actually trailing the Barbarian right now, but that soon changes. Trust me. I overcome pretty much all of them. I'm just spoiler. The world. I take top DPS. I take top Hangringer, right? And these guys are good. These people that I'm playing with are top of their class. They have all of the appropriate items, and the Warlock was still able to out DPS these individuals. So we're talking about a Barbarian and a Ranger right now. Now, I haven't gone up against a Rogue or a Wizard yet, so I don't know what the DPS looks versus those other classes. But talking about the Warlock, I'm happy where the Warlock is. I think they could still make significant improvements from it, especially a single target like we talked about Soul Investor, but this is the second boss, so let's go through the mechanics. Tank is going to gain aggro on him, pull him into the corner. DPS is going to, again, get that combat advantage, stand behind him, blah, blah, blah. Now, you're going to get red circles underneath you, and it happens, like, pretty much every 15 seconds. So everybody has circles. What you want to do, that's called the bombs. You want to avoid the bombs, guys. Bombs will put fire on the ground. So as you go around, you need to relocate the boss. You're going to see us inch around in a circular pattern. So again, we have the bombs, get out of the bombs blow up, and now there's more fire on the ground. So you want to mow the boss down basically as quickly as possible so you can limit how much the AoEs go off, essentially. So not only do you have that group effect bomb, so there's the bombs again, but you also have single target bombs. So you'll get single target yourself and you will have to spread. So there's a group bomb that everyone will get and you'll all have to move away from that. And then there's also a single target as well. Now when he does this, imps will chain someone and pull them in. You need to hide behind the pillars. He's charging an attack right now. This is like Sorvin board where you had to hide behind the pillars. So hide behind pillars. He will do his AoE fire attack. That will destroy you, by the way. You definitely need to avoid that attack. So when he casts the pillar, or when he casts the imps, you need to free your teammates of the chain so they don't get stuck in that AoE. So here's the single target bombs. Everyone's spreading across. The bombs go off, and those fire will kill you. If you stand in the fire, you'll die. You won't even have a chance. You can't get healed through it. You have to move. So we have the boss down to what, about 75% already. This is a longer battle, unfortunately, just because there's so much moving. Now this goes hand in foot with what I was saying earlier about the Warlock specifically and Soul Investor. Because you're trying to maintain 5 stacks of Soul Investor, but every time you move, those stacks have, like, what, 10 seconds, I believe? 10, 15 seconds, whatever the case may be, and then they completely reset. You don't just lose one stack. No, you lose everything and have to start the whole process over again. So the ramping up self-buff of the Warlock, that seriously needs looked at. I mean, because we're to the point of this stage game's life cycle here where the dungeons aren't going to get any easier. The mechanics are going to keep progressively getting harder and harder. They've already said that the next trial that's going to come out is going to be even harder than Tower of the Mad Mage. So when you're self-buffing and you're relying as the Warlock, that's pretty much your only internal self-buff, and you can barely maintain it. Like, if you look at the screen, I can't see. I have like 2 stacks of Soul Investor right now, and I'm constantly moving around, thus I can't do my rotation. So here we go again. Here's the imps. You need to try to kill the imps as fast as you can to release your teammates. Once you kill the imps, get behind the pillar. So now, get behind the pillar. The gigantic AoE is going to go off. And here comes the AoE, bada bing, bada boom. The tank just stood there and took it like a champion. He doesn't care. So now we got this guy down to about 50%. And again, you're just going in a circular pattern, or I guess it's a square room, so a square pattern. Here's the single target. Again, watch the red circles. Get out of it. Fire comes on the floor. It's the same process over and over again for this guy. Here is the big bomb. Big bomb just went off. I'm actually in really bad position here. I'm actually on the same side as the tank. I'm trying to reposition myself, but there's just so much fire on the ground. I can't get through. See, I shadow slipped through the fire right there, and I still took an extreme amount of damage. Shadow slip does not give you invulnerability to this stuff, which sucks. There again, I just took a big chunk of damage right there by trying to shadow slip and avoid all the fire. There comes a point in this fight where if you don't kill this guy fast enough, you're going to die because there's going to be so much fire on the ground, you're not going to have any room to move around. So here we go. We have him down to what, about 30%. And this is where stuff gets bad. The DC is going to, or not the DC, the Paladin is eventually going to die here. He's going to perma-die. We're not going to have a healer. The tank doesn't have heals to tank, and our DPS is going to have to be sufficient to mow him down. So I think that happens within the last 10% or so. We're at about almost 25% now. You can see this is a longer boss battle. We have the imps again, so this is the third phase of the imps. I got the first one down. Those guys are standing in fire. You can see them dying. Or Barbarian just died right there because he was standing in the fire. So we're trying to kill the imp right here, which is irrelevant because the Barbarian was the one that was stuck. The gigantic AoE went off, and then rinse and repeat again. You're starting the whole process over again. So here we go. I'm going to cast artifacts, debuffs, and as I start my rotation, there you go. Bombs are on the floor again. I got to get out of the fire and I'm trying to maintain my stacks of Soul Investor, which is just literally impossible. Shadow slipping through all that fire. You can see all the damage I take. Well, I mean, our healer was amazing. I mean, shout out to, what's his name? Ash. He's a paladin. Great guy, man. But he goes down. He does actually perma-die here. I just took a significant amount of damage right there. I actually self-healed. I popped a Stone of Health right there because I didn't think I was going to live. I think our healer is perma-dead here, or it's going to happen remotely soon, where our healer does perma-die here. We're at 5% right now, so keep an eye on Ash. Pretty sure he does go down, and then our DPS has to be significant to finish it. So there it is. He's perma-dead right there. The Paladin just went down. Our tank no longer has heals. He's going to try to, tank his best. We actually got a 4th phase of imps right here. More teammates are going to go down. They're standing in the fire. Nothing you can do about it. The big AoE just goes off. Our tank actually went down right there. And we're at about 3%. I almost died again. I popped a Stone of Health, and then I did die. So I had to burn a mass life scroll right there. So now that gives me a death. And right here, I'm just trying to pump out as much DOT damage as I can. Right now, I'm just trying to evade. I'm trying to find my way back to the group because there's so much fire on the ground that it's insane. Again, I pop another Stone of Health, and right here, I'm just trying to finish it off. I'm trying to get as much creeping death on this guy and let the DOTs finish him off. So he does eventually die here momentarily. My DOTs just tick him away at this point. And there he goes. There he goes down. So that is an intense fight. It really is. If you're doing this with randoms with no communication, good luck. Because you have to move the boss around, you have to dodge the fire and everything else. So here are some more of these reagents. These guys actually wanted these, so I passed on them because I didn't want to be a greedy asshole. I got some earlier. So I passed on both of those reagents. Those guys got pieces that they needed, and then we're going to continue the dungeon. So we're right now at about a half hour. So the next half hour is us basically on the last boss. There's a few more trash mobs along the way. This is the funny part of the video. If you've made it this part in the video, give me a hashtag Gar falls down or something. I did not know that these things disappeared, right? So this is my first time doing the dungeon. I'm like jumping along and I'm like, wait a second, what the hell just happened? And I died because they didn't tell me. They thought it would be funny to watch me die and have it recorded. So I was like, oh, okay, ha ha ha, screw you guys too. So yeah. So they do reset, and basically you just have to jump across here without, them falling and you dying, essentially. But, yeah, they all got a good kick out of that because they were like, yeah, we're not going to tell him that these fall down. So I did die right there. GG. It happens. First time in the dungeon, now I know. So, yeah, we have a handful of trash mobs to go, and then we will get on to the Hell Engine here. I believe there is one more achievement up here that you can get. You have to jump on a pillar or something, and you get a actual gamer score if you're on Xbox achievement, so I'm assuming you get a trophy on PS4 or something, but you can bypass some of these trash mobs as well. We're going to actually hug the left corner. I believe it's the left corner up here. And you can actually bypass this and cut down some of the time. I've heard rumors of people completely bypassing the second boss. I know there's people out there that are saying they're running Infernal Citadel within like 16 minutes or something, and the time wasn't adding up. It's like how you see our DPS is actually really good DPS. So to do this dungeon in 16 minutes is pretty impressive. I think the normal run time is about 25 minutes to a half hour, and that's doing everything legitimately. But I've actually heard rumors that apparently there's a way that you can totally bypass the second boss altogether. So that's obviously, a glitch, and people are exploiting that. That's not supposed to happen, obviously. But that's how, if you've seen screenshots circulating around with people doing Infernal Citadel within like 15 minutes, 16 minutes, 17 minutes, yeah, they're cheating. That's how they did it. They completely bypassed the second boss. I'm not sure what's all involved in how to do that, or how to do it, or if it's just accidental and when it happens or when it triggers. But yeah, don't believe those screenshots of those 15, 16, 17 minute runs, guys. That's not legit. This dungeon, even with the best DPS in the game, is going to still take you anywhere from 25 to 30 minutes. This is the second achievement here. You need to jump from one side to the other. bada bing, bada boom, jump on the pillar, get the achievement. You should, like I said, get an Xbox achievement as well, I believe. Yeah, so there's my 5 gamer score, and I'm sure you get a trophy on PS4 or something. And then you just have to kill yourself and then catch up to your group. I think my group took a minor break right here. I think this was really late on a Friday night, so I think this guy was like, yo, I'm going to grab a beer. So he went and grabbed a beer as we were trying to catch up to everyone. It's not really that far away, but you can see where some of the downtime is here. So, you know, as far as dungeon time goes, you might eventually be able to get this down to 20 minutes. But you're looking at a 25-minute run, even with the best DPS in the game, no wipes at all, and you're demolishing everything at that point. So right now we're taking a minor little break right here. This guy's getting a beer. And we're going to be coming up to the third boss here remotely quickly. Now, like I said, we did wipe, I think, 3 times. Either 3 or 4 times. You can see I checked the Pain Giver here. I've now overtaken both of the other DPS, but not by much. But I'm still on top. You know, that hasn't happened in a few mods now where Warlock was on top of the DPS board. So it's all about that DOT damage at this point. The longer the battle lasts, the more damage the Warlock is going to put out there. So this is where I said that you can hug the left wall, navigate around the left wall. You won't aggro any of these trash mobs here, which is good. Then you can go and move in here, kill the last few trash mobs, and like I said, the last boss should be coming up right here in the distance. And the last boss is just, it's frustrating, because even if you know the mechanics, things can still go wrong. Mistakes can still happen, and that was our problem. It wasn't any individual's fault. It wasn't my fault because I didn't know the mechanics. It wasn't their fault because they didn't know the mechanics, or they did know the mechanics, but maybe they made a mistake or something. You have to be in communication with your group during this last boss. It's imperative in my eyes, because you have to all group up on the same tile, and you have to have some kind of strategy. If you have everyone just doing what they want, you're going to wipe every time, because the fire is going to spread on the floor and you're just essentially going to die over and over again. So communication is definitely key. So yeah, we're going to move down here, and I believe this is the last boss. So they do give me a breakdown, and again, I'm just telling them, I'm like, yo, you know, give me the rundown, and then let's just go in. If we wipe the first time, we wipe the first time, no big deal, but at least I need to get hands-on experience to see how this all works, how it interacts, what the mechanics are, etc. The last boss does have, I don't know, 3 or 4 specific mechanics that we'll go over here when we engage in the battle. Man, I'm getting really parched here. Let me get a little drink. Has anyone made it this far in the video? We're at, 37 minutes? I'm going to take a drink right here. You watch this, watch this. That's delicious. I don't do these commentaries very often. Usually all my stuff is live. But this was just one of those cases where I did the dungeon at a later time, and now I'm just filming the commentary for it. It happens, but not very often. And like I said, this is a long video. Anyone watching an hour video on Neverwinter, congratulations. I applaud your performance. Give yourself a high five. I figure this is the most opportune time to post an hour-long dungeon run, just for the sheer fact that a lot of people are still dealing with the pandemic that's going on in the world. A lot of people are still self-quarantined. You might not have anything to do, so hey, watch a Garland video. You know, I might as well just plug myself right here, you know. Sub to the channel, follow the Twitter, join the Discord, touch me in the pants, do whatever you gotta do. So right now, again, they are giving me the rundown. I'm still top. The Barbarian's about 5 million behind me right now. So, yeah, not too bad DPS. Like I said, with a few more modifications to the Warlock would actually be in a really good place, and I would actually be happy about where the Warlock is. It's all about that soul investor. It just takes too long to self-buff yourself and maintain the stacks. I really wish they would have done that mechanic a little differently, I guess. But, I mean, hey, it is what it is. I mean, what are you going to do, you know? You have to adapt to the playstyle. We went from a direct damaging high-tier DPS down to now where DOT damage. We went through a period where you had to play the healer role because the DPS was so bad. So now you're not forced to play a healing role as a warlock. DPS is valid again. And you will do okay. Now, you do have to have the gear to back it up. I mean, a subpar warlock with subpar gear is still going to get dominated, most likely. You need to have the gear to back up the class, unfortunately. So here we go. I think we're talking. I do try two different things here. I start with, do I do this? Yeah, I put my fiery bolt on because I thought my fiery bolt might actually yield me bigger damage because I was using Blades of the Vanquished, which means I would have to be right on top of the boss. So moving around so much, I didn't think I was getting a lot of DPS from Blades, so I figured I would toss on Fiery Bolt so I can fire it from a distance. That wasn't the case. I think I did switch back to Blades during this fight after one of the wipes or something. So here we are, Hellfire Engine, last boss of the Mod 18 dungeon, Infernal Citadel. And here we go. Here's the first mechanic, and I fucked up right off the bat. So once you get that bomb, you all need to gather on the same space. And I fucked up. You can see when you gather on that space, it turns to fire. That fire will one-shot you. You can no longer touch that fire. After he does that attack, he's going to do this whirlwind thing where he just spits out fire. You cannot really get hit by that fire either. I suggest you get hit by nothing in this dungeon. Periodically, you'll see that that fire just came out of nowhere from the vents. That's fine. He does this bomb cycle about every 20 seconds, maybe 25 seconds, maybe less. I don't know. I wasn't really counting, I guess. So when everyone gets the red circle, right here it is, everybody needs to go to the same towel, and you all cannot touch another towel. Once it goes off, clear yourself away, and that towel will become fire. So now you can see that it wasn't one towel. We actually infected 3 towels off of that, and that screws us in the long run. The more towels you have on fire, the less room you have to move around, and ultimately you're going to die. So you need to coordinate with your group on where you're putting them. So now there's also a single target one. You can see one of my teammates had a single target one. Now he does like a AoE fire vent. I wasn't sure what the hell I was doing. So I moved through it. I survived. We're good. So here it is again. You need to communicate with your group. Where are we going? Where are we going? Where are we going? We need to line them all up. Everyone needs to be on the same towel. Again, we messed up. There's going to be like 3 towels right there. I died. I had no idea what was going on at this point. So I died. I burned a scroll here. I try to get out of the fire. But you can see how many squares we already have up. Now these things here. Now so here's the single target one. Again, I'm yelling at my group. I'm like, what do I do? And they're like, just go to a towel. Again, I messed up. I just took out 2 towels right there, right? And then it cast on me again. So there it is again. Now, the single target one does not cast fire, right? You'll notice the single target one doesn't cast fire. It casts like a charred effect. So you can still step on those towels. So here we are again. Here's the AoE vent phase. And I'm just still learning, so I didn't know how to maneuver. Here it is again. Here's the group up phase. You need to just get on the same page with your group. Again, I think we might have infected more than 1 towel there. Yeah, I messed up again. I shadow slipped away too early, and I ended up infecting an extra towel right there. So this first initial run was the first time of me ever doing this, so I had no idea what was going on. So here's the single target one again, and now I move away. And, you know, for the first run, this actually wasn't that bad. We got him down to, what, 70% or something. I think we end up calling it here momentarily because we just get too much fire on the ground, and we end up just saying, yeah, let's just redo this. So he does have a charge attack, so that's him targeting the tank, and there he goes. Bada bing, bada boom. He goes flinging himself. And then again, directly after he does that charge attack is when the vents catch on fire again. You need to move to the opposite side, and then he will do another AoE bomb. Yeah, so here's the bomb. You need to gather up on the same towel. Again, all our team is trying to get on the same one. I think we actually were okay with that one, so we only inflicted 1 towel. But it's already too late in the game for this. Mistakes were already made. We're running out of space. So now he's doing his spinning attack. As he gets to closer to 50% is where he starts his mini engines will come out. And the mini engines, if you don't kill them, they have a pushback effect, a knockback. And the mini engines will knock you right into the fire. And the fire will instantly kill you. So The mini engines do have a good bit of HP, so you need to decide what you're going to do. Are you going to target the mini ones, or are you going to continue DPS on the main boss? That's something every individual group has to decide on how they're going to treat this event overall. So here we go, AoE again from the vents. We get them down to 50% now. Here's the AoE. Now I'm stuck all the way behind my group, and I died because I did not know that Shadow Slip did not give me immunity from the fire. I did not know that at this point. So yes, the fire will kill you. You cannot use your immune abilities. So for instance, the Warlock, you just Shadow Slip and goes invulnerable. That does not work on this fire, guys. You will die. So here we're trying to gather up again. It goes off. And I believe right now in the group chat is where we're saying, yeah, this is pretty much going to be a wipe. I mean, we got them to 50%, but we're running out of tiles. I end up dying again from the whirlwind of fire effect, and I think is where we all release right here. I think we call it. Let's wait and see. I don't remember. Yeah, okay, so we released. So that's a good indication of that mechanic for the last boss. Now imagine doing that with a pickup group full of randoms that have no idea what they're doing. You're going to wipe every single time. You might get lucky and get a pickup group that knows exactly what they're doing, but you also have no communication, so everyone's infecting the vents, and you're going to run out of room because there's going to be too much fire. Even if you know the mechanics of the event, there are still things that can go wrong because you have no coordination, you have no communication. So here we go. Here's attempt number 2. I don't know how many times we wiped. I don't recall offhand. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Maybe we only wiped 2 times and we killed it on the 3rd time, because I think we're at 46 minutes in the video, so we have about 10 minutes left. I think we do wipe 3 times. We'll have to wait and see, but you can clearly see that this does take coordination and it does take communication. Everybody has to be on the same page, and I'm not knocking it. I actually like this. I think more dungeons should have been developed this way in the past. When you think of most Neverwinter dungeons, they were fairly easy and fairly straightforward. The mechanics that we had in the day, like the infinite pally bubble where no one would ever die because no one could ever get hit because the paladin bubble would be infinite, you know? People totally ignored dungeon mechanics. Think of like Castle Never with the green orbs on Orcus. No one ever dodged those because they don't do any damage, you know? So now the developers are to the point where you have to dodge stuff. You can't just stand in the fire. You're going to die. It's as simple as that. You're going to wipe. So it's a completely different aspect of the game now. Like, you have to be mobile. You have to be coordinated. You have to communicate. And I really actually enjoy that. I prefer that type of game style other than the mind-numbing nonsense of just standing there and, you know, tanking and spanking the mob that has no mechanics where you just, you know, destroy it, you know? Yes, it's easy mode, and yes, I don't mind that every once in a while, but I prefer, you know, challenging content that, you know, is fun but challenging. But then let's talk about, so we're coming toward the end of the video, we have about 10 minutes left, so let's talk about the challenging content. And this is where this dungeon fails, is the rewards. The 3 new artifact piece set comes out of here, right? That's the top tier reward. If you get the artifact, congratulations, you got to sell it while the getting is good, because more and more people do the dungeon. It's all about supply and demand. The artifact goes down in price, and that's the chase item. The chase item is the artifact, secondary to the necklace and secondary to the belt. It's the 3-piece set, right? But once more and more people influx the market with those items, they become useless. As far as profit value goes, they're not useless items, but there's no money to be made. So the people that capitalize and finish this dungeon remotely fast are the ones that are making the most money on the market. And that's to be said about every dungeon that comes into the game. Look at Tower of the Mad Mage. The first people on Xbox, Jesus had Soulforged, the guild I'm in, you know, were the first people to capitalize and sell legendary rings or sell the artifact set from Tower of the Mad Mage for just eye-gouging prices. And people were paying them because people were stupid. But now, as more and more people finish Tower of the Mad Mage, those prices have dramatically gone down the tubes. And now, there's no reason to do that content. The same thing is with Infernal Citadel. When I get the item that I need from this dungeon, like I said earlier in the video, I'm never going to do this dungeon again. Even though the dungeon was fun, even though the dungeon was captivating for me, and I had a good time doing the dungeon, there's no incentive to actually run the content. And Cryptic is in the process right now of trying to remedy this situation. I don't know what they're going to do as far as rewards go, but I mean, what I get out of my chest at the end is a joke. And I spent an hour, a real life hour of my time doing this dungeon for the first time because I need the gear to do it. But what's the incentive for people to keep running dungeons? Like, once this content is over, this content's going to be over for me specifically. I'm never going to do this dungeon again. Once I get my gloves, which I only need one more reagent for, so hopefully, like, maybe one more run, maybe 2 more runs. I've run this dungeon maybe a total of 3 times before I get my gloves, and I'm never going to do it again. And like I said, it's not because it's not fun. It's not because the dungeon itself wasn't captivating for me. It's because there's no point. There's no incentive of doing something when you're not getting rewarded at the end. Even if this dungeon only takes a half hour of my time, if you're giving me a freaking sapphire at the end of the dungeon, that's a no-go for me, Chief. I don't need refinement points to begin with. But they need to come up with some kind of system, some kind of maybe currency that if you run the latest content, you're going to accumulate currency to buy stuff. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to do the rewards. I don't know how they're going to rework the rewards. I don't know how they're going to keep people captivated enough and excited enough to run the same content for 2 to 3 months at a time, right? Because, you know, that's about when release dates come. You know, you get a new content update every 2, maybe 3 months away, and you're stuck with the same content for 2 to 3 months. That's why people that play Neverwinter play in spurts, because they do everything in the first month of the game. They get the campaign completely done, and then they sit around for 2 months not doing anything, and then once the new content comes out, then they come back to the game and rinse and repeat that whole process. There's nothing in Neverwinter that keeps you captivated or engaged enough to play the game every single day. There's no reason to. There's no incentive to. There's nothing to do. And it is what it is. They need to remedy that situation. Hopefully they can come up with something. Hopefully Whiteside, he's in charge now. Hopefully he can lead the pack in the right direction, I guess. I don't know, but I kind of lost my train of thought now. We were talking about rewards, but is this the 3rd attempt? If you made it this far in the video, we're on like 50 minutes of recording at this point. Congratulations if you made it this far in the video. Make sure you give me a hashtag 50. Give me a hashtag 50 at the 50-minute mark. So I think this is our 3rd attempt, and I think we wipe again. I don't think we kill this until the 4th. I might be wrong. We might have killed this attempt. I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see. But I've already discussed the mechanics of it. You can clearly see we're mowing it down. We almost have them back down to 50%. Our positioning is a lot better now that I have an understanding of what exactly we have to do. Everyone's on the same page, where as soon as we get that red indicator, right here it is, we all go to the next tile. We hug the wall so we're not infecting multiple squares. Some of my teammates got split up, so they infected different squares, but it was on the outside. So he's doing his whirlwind again with the fire. Again, this fire won't one-shot you, but it is going to do significant amounts of damage. Now, the fire on the floor, that will demolish you. So here we go, DPS, DPS, DPS. We just about have him down to about 50% right now, which is really good. So not too bad overall. He's doing his charge attack right now. He's going to fling himself, and then following that, he's going to do the AoE vent attack. I think so. Maybe. Maybe not. Did he not do the vent attack? I guess he did not do the vent attack right there. So now we're maximizing DPS. You're going to see one of those mini Hellfire engines right there in the left-hand corner, and there's one right behind me. They exploded. You want to make sure that you're not getting knocked back by those. Those will knock you right into the fire, and that's a really bad time. Here is the AoE again. I have teammates coming to me. I'm not sure if we all got here. So there you go. That Tau is now engulfed. And you can see that we're, again, running out of space. DPS does significantly matter. The faster you can kill these bosses, the better. The longer they go on, the more mechanics you have to fight through. So I'm not saying, you know, don't take scrubs that need carried, but if you're a DPS class, you better be bringing your A game, because if you're sitting here and this boss is taking you 15 minutes, you're going to just run out of space, and you're going to ultimately wipe the whole party anyway, because there's going to be so much fire on the floor because you're not doing enough output DPS to maintain that. We're keeping a good pace here, where you could see we're slowly stacking the fire in a square-like pattern, so we still have the center of the map here. We were talking in the group about at this point right here where we're at. We're like, you know, we're kind of getting to the point now where we are running out of space along the edges of the map. We need to really step up some DPS here. So we try to go full force here. We're trying to DPS as fast as we can. We do have another AoE. I don't think everyone got to me. I'm actually by myself right here. So not only did I take up another square, but my teammates went on the other side of the map and took up another square on that side. So we have him at, what, about 30%, almost 25% at this point. We're popping artifacts right here. Keep in mind, during this whole time, I cannot keep Soul Investor, right? My self buff is actually completely worthless because I cannot maintain 5 stacks of Soul Investor during this much moving. I don't know if there's anything I can do about that to not use it if it's not worth using. But there's just no way. As a Warlock, there's no way you're going to maintain 5 stacks during this fight because you're going to be constantly moving. You're not going to be able to statically do your rotation. So I think we're at what here? About 20%. We just hit the 20% mark. I think we actually do finish this right here. This should be our completion most likely. So we're going full DPS again here. He's going to bomb us again, at least once or twice more. He's doing his charge attack right now, which he should follow up with the vents. You can see the little baby hellfires are out. I also got single targeted. And then we also got group targeted. So now we're all running around because we didn't know what's going on. So I took a square by myself again, and my teammates had to use another square. So that just limited the playing field again. One of my teammates just went down right there. I'm in a bad way right here. I got self-target. I think we're going to burn a scroll here. I don't think we wipe again. I think we finish this. So I was waiting for the mechanic, so I burned another scroll. He's at almost, what, 13%? We go full DPS right here, I'm pretty sure. I'm waiting to see. I'm pretty sure, because I can see that my Swarm is up, right? Yeah, I just cast Swarm. There's my artifact. I think I'm going to... Yep, I just cast my Tyrannical. We go full-blown DPS right here, because we need to finish this. Well, you can see the playing field is so small at this point. If we don't kill him right here, he kills us. Because we simply run out of map space. Look how many squares were left right there, guys. So there it is. Bada bing, bada boom. There's the Hellfire Chain. Again, I was lucky enough. These guys were more than happy to give me both of these. So I got 2 of the Hellfire changed, or Hellforge changed, whatever they're called, in one run. You need 3 of those total. Again, I'll make a separate video on how to get the Lion's Armor. But there it is. There's the completion of Infernal Citadel. That was my very first run of the dungeon itself. There's the achievements popping up right now. I'm going down, make sure I got the second, which I did. I got the Xbox achievement. We'll take a look at the Pain Giver here. I'm pretty sure I bring that up here momentarily. And we didn't do that bad. 30 million atop of the Barbarian. I was at 240 million. The Barbarian was at 210. So we were about 30 million above. Not too bad. So we'll go ahead and open these chests and look at the rewards. That was the rewards. Now we're going to use the dungeon key and see what we get here. Oh, look, garbage. So let's re-roll this. And we're going to re-roll it again. Like, what are these rewards? Actually, I'm not even getting refinement. I thought I got a sapphire. I didn't even get refinement. I mean, I got gear that I'm going to turn into refinement. But, I mean, that's the rewards, guys. I was already maxed out on sills, so I didn't get the sills. But that's it. That's all I got for you. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you made it this long, congratulations, and you're awesome, and I love you. We'll see you in the next one.